It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Ha! It's Feedback Friday, and Momo is with us. Momo, some of you on Twitch this week were like, "Where's Momo?" So I put Momo in Feedback Friday, right, Momo? No, not really. You came in right as I was about to record, and now you're rethinking it, aren't you, buddy? Yeah. Hi. Can you say hi to everybody before you get bored and leave? You're looking for the door. Even in cats, that means they want to go. Say hi, Momo. Hey. Yeah, there's the Momos. Yeah, everybody sink in the cute. We all need the cute. I'm just going to do this for as long as Momo tolerates it because we all need a whole bunch of cute right now. Right, buddy? Yeah. Yeah. Ready, Momo? Angry typing. No, you're not going to put up with that today. Okay, thank you, Momo. Thank you, Momo. If you like stuff with Momo, actually, I don't do much cat content on Patreon anymore. I should start. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Okay, so some people thought I was not serious about the rule that I was going to ignore certain types of comments. I'm going to ignore certain types of comments. There were some ones, though, that I'm like, okay, this isn't exactly, even though they are using examples in politics, they are on topic. So that is fair. A few people asked about whether the Hunter Biden laptop story was in fact confirmed. And I actually read Fox News. I do it every so often to see what they're saying so I can understand more on this in a bit when I read the comment on background theories. But oh, holy crap, there was an article on Fox News about how baby shampoo up your nose kills coronavirus. Yeah, okay. So that was my deep dive into madness this week, okay? But somebody asked whether it's been confirmed, and yes, I see that if you go to certain news services, it seems like this thing's confirmed. What it means when a particular news service confirms a story is they are able to independently verify the information instead of just taking it from the original source. And I know people don't like the mainstream media, but the thing about the mainstream media is they have people they are accountable to, whether it be, ombudsman like the CBC up here or some sort of broadcasting council, so on and so forth, right? So they need to independently verify information before they can consider the story confirmed. And the contents of a laptop, nobody's seen them yet. It's based on accounts of what's on it. No one has seen the laptop. No one has seen a copy of the laptop. While I'm recording this, who knows, that may change between now and when this video airs or goes live on YouTube. I still use TV terms. But that's what that means. No one has actually seen the contents of this laptop. It was just turned over to law enforcement yesterday, I believe. So no, nobody's seen it. The story's not confirmed. Just saying, this is how journalism works. And I got told off by somebody who considers himself a member of the media this week because I said they were naive about how online journalism works. Because I said, I am not saying anything to you publicly. You work for an online publication. This person got horribly offended and tore me a new one in DMs. I still stand by my assertion that no, anything you say on Twitter, people can and do take and just put them in a story without reaching out to you for comment or clarification. You used to not be able to do that. You used to at least have to make the attempt to contact them. If they didn't get back to you, at least you did it. Now, of course, the spirit of this rule was violated all the time by contacting somebody only a half hour before you ran the story, but you still did it. That's not the case anymore. People can just use tweets because you agreed to that when you agreed to Twitter's terms of service, right? Or Facebook's terms of service. They don't need to get your permission. So the way media works is changing. And this is why it's so important to talk about the chilling effect of certain things and why it's so important to be careful. Be careful online. Absolutely. I'm very careful online. A lot of people don't believe me, but there's a difference between being careful about the things I care about and just letting her rip about things I don't give a shit about. You know, I really don't care if a bunch of political extremists think I'm crazy or an idiot. They already do. I will say, I said this on Twitch as well, that I thought it was pretty great. It gave me a real chuckle to see a bunch of game journalists ripping me apart like Mean Girls on Twitter. Somebody screen capped a tweet of mine and they were like, oh, that's that so-and-so from Gamergate. That's a Gamergate or everything like that. And it's like, it shouldn't give me joy, but it gives me joy that I am still living rent-free in their heads and they give a shit about what I think while they're humble bragging about their 65 grand a year unionized game writing jobs, right? Like, oh, wow, I still bother you? Something I say must still be relevant. It was the boost I needed to keep going. But I also got a boost, sprinkled through the comments of people who just ignored what I said I wasn't going to comment on. Or they came to the video from some sort of subreddit or some sort of group, didn't actually watch the video, so they didn't see the part about I'm not commenting on this stuff, and just went on a tirade. Again, just because you have a very strong opinion on something does not mean anybody has to give your opinion any weight. I mean, this is what we've been saying about the whole thing in gaming for ages, is if we want game devs to ignore the criticisms and even the slanders of people who are never going to buy their game in the first place, we have to start modeling the behavior of people who hold certain views, people who have certain political skews, are not going to enjoy my content anyway. They're not going to watch me except to hate watch me. So, I don't deliberately piss anyone off. I say things. Some people do not understand the nuance of what I'm saying, and so they get mad. Okay, I get a hate click. I'm not going to persuade these people, so I don't care what they think. And I've realized this week, examining this, because there's a lot of things about people's perception on the internet that I don't understand. I realized watching some much higher profile people than me say, I don't care, about a month before they melt down and it turns out my mental health, that whole thing. Not mocking mental health. Just, I noticed that there's kind of a start the clock when a high profile YouTuber goes on about how they don't care about the haters and all that stuff on a regular basis. So I understand why people don't buy it. So many people say, I don't care, when in fact they very much do care. So I don't tend to talk about how little I care about certain people's opinions. One, because that's not nice. Two, because a lot of people say that. Not everybody means it, right? So let's move on. I just think that's grounding, because I don't quite know where to start on which video. I had no idea how much diversity on philosophy of apologies there is out there. And it's funny, because when it comes to my own behavior, I'm very much, what's right, what's wrong. There's no such thing as doing the wrong thing for the right reasons, right? Because that gets you into no bad tactics, only bad targets theory. But with other people, I'm more like, okay, what are you trying to accomplish in this conversation? Because I recognize not everybody is the lawful good character that I am, right? Not everybody comes at communication the same way. Not everybody has the same intents and desired outcomes for a conversation. I'm learning more and more that a lot of people on the internet speak just to prove their existence in some way. They don't actually speak to accomplish a goal. And so more and more I'm finding I'm getting better results when instead of framing every conversation on this is ethically right, this is ethically wrong, I say, what do I want to accomplish in this exchange? I find that works better. And so I was really surprised by some people saying they don't believe in apologizing ever. They just believe in letting the chips fall where they may and moving on. And one of the cats is snoring and it sounds like farting. I didn't realize they were there. That's Zelda and Scout. I think that's Scout that's snoring. I was like, did I accidentally let one rip? But I didn't know. No, the cats are farting. No, the cats were snoring. They're not farting. Cat farts are wretched. They're just snoring. Oh my God. That just threw me totally off track. Anyway, this is an example, like this whole thing about I never apologize, I just move forward. I don't know what that experience is like. Like, I'll give you some background on me. I grew up in a household where I was always the one that was expected to be in the wrong. I was that, stress point in the family. And so I was always the one that was wrong. I was always the one that was crazy. I was always the one that was out of control. And no one else ever apologized for anything ever. And the expectation was always on me to be the one at fault. And for many, many years, I internalized that. And it wasn't until... The interesting thing about being the crazy one in your family is when you're sent to therapy at 15 and the therapist starts going, well, we examine the family in pediatric psychology cases and what? And you start going, oh, gee, a lot of these things aren't my fault. Now, was that why I was sent to therapy? Oh, no. It was the typical fix my kid. Just basically because, I was the full on, like these people who get offended by, I'm not a nerd, I'm a geek and stuff like that. No, I was both, right? Like, I was both. I was like reading Sherlock Holmes when I was 9. And, I think that's the first time I attempted Lord of the Rings. I didn't really understand it then. But, like, I was reading more the classics than the cool kid books. Although I did love, what's it called? The Choose Your Own Adventures. Love those. The Time Machine novels. Oh my God. Those things were amazing. But I liked computers and I liked space. I loved space. One of the biggest disappointments of my young life was finding out that I had a medical condition that meant I couldn't be an astronaut. I was so upset. But, I just think differently. And I learned people do think differently. But every so often you're reminded of how utterly disparate people's framings on the world are. And that's very important to keep in mind. And that's why I'm not quite sure where to start, because I'll start with the apology thing and then I'll move on to the framing thing, I guess. I'm going to try this. The censorship comments were interesting. I'm not sure if we'll have time to them, but I'll try to get them in. There was a lot of there were a lot of comments to the effect of it was an unfair attack in the first place, therefore a non-apology apology is warranted. And from my point of view of if an apology is not warranted, don't apologize. Use the opportunity to clarify, but don't give a non-apology apology. Because if you just don't apologize, on principle and say, let me clarify my position here. If you think you have nothing to be sorry for, if you think clarification is enough, do that. Once you get into this non-apology apology game, to me, and remember I'm talking about this in the paradigm of different framings, to me, that's just being a passive aggressive. And at that point, you're losing not only the moral high ground, but the adulting one. And this is the thing that constantly gets me into trouble so often, because I constantly get into this issue with, I know I've done the reading that the majority of women are socially trained from the time they're like 2 to be passive aggressive. She's like, no, it's okay when it's actually not okay. That kind of thing. To most people, that's being nice. To me, big nerd, that's being mean. Because you're sending 2 messages and making it the other person's problem what to do about that. That is not nice, right? Now there's a back and forth on this, right? Like, we all have people who we know, hi Loki, they're asking you, how does this look? Or read my manuscript. And they just want you to tell them it's good. You know that, but it isn't good. What do you do? Well, for me, it's what I do is, what kind of feedback are you looking for here? And if they say, oh, just general feedback, if I can find something I liked about it, I'll just say, I liked this part. I'm not going to lie and say the whole thing's great, because that's about me, my principles, right? People have to know that when I give them feedback, it's honest. It may not be complete, but it's honest. That's my trade-off, okay? But I don't think it's especially fair in the first place to ask somebody to take up their time and then not even be able to give an honest answer. That's just an exercise in ego, right? But there are people who do that. And I understand that there is the argument that you don't, if they're not coming at you authentically, you don't owe them authenticity. The thing is, you owe yourself authenticity. I think a lot of people would be a lot less socially anxious if we all just made a vow of authenticity. It's one thing to not say something because you know it will hurt someone's feelings. It's another thing to say something that is actually just dishonest. You know? What I tend to say of, you know, if somebody's like, how does this look? I'll be something like, I don't know fashion, which quite frankly is true, right? I don't. I see stuff on TV now. It's like, what is that? It looks like she's wearing drapes, and not even like the nice, like utilitarian drapes, like the ones that an old lady died in her house, and those were the dresses on her bedroom, like the drapes on her bedroom. Like that's what it looks like to me. I don't know from fashion. So they can take from that what they will, but there are just some people, other people I know, I can say, I like the blue one better, right? It's different relationships, but then you have to wonder, why do you have relationships with a person who's so lacking in authenticity, right? These are the problems we have to deal with. But the reality is, the issue I have with so many other women is that I get that women are trained to not be authentic, but it causes so much trouble. Now, granted, men are trained to be inauthentic in other ways, but that's not the topic today, right? And this is where we go to that comment, you know, I wanted to say about different framings. And Adam Myers commented on this. He made 3 different comments about background theories. But I'll read his last one. he said, as far as internet rules go, I think it should be assumed that if a person is reacting to evidence in a manner you don't predict, or that it seems like they are contradicting themselves, first assume that it might be that they differ in background theory. This would be a kind of extension of Hanlon's razor. Don't assume that a person hasn't seen, or don't assume that a person has seen the relevant evidence or the like, or that they are clueless in what they are saying, though that is, don't assume that a person hasn't seen, the double negative was accurate, the relevant evidence or the like, or that they are clueless in what they are saying, though it's a possibility. Rather, start with the assumption that their assumptions, background theory, might differ from yours. If you are a materialist, metaphysically speaking, you might be arguing with an idealist, monadist, or even a dualist. Their metaphysical stance will color how they interpret scientific reports and data. Likewise, if you aren't a materialist and you are arguing with one, their views on reality will color how they view ethics. You really shouldn't assume that a person who uses a label necessarily means it in the same way if there is a different background theory of looking at it. And this is the problem with the world we live in right now, that there is a particular group that is in control of the internet zeitgeist in a way they are not in control of culture in general, right? That it successfully controls the actual syntax that we're allowed to use in a given week. And that has gotten a lot of people very freaked out. And I get why that's freaky outy. And this is, again, a lens, right? People who spend a lot of time online, especially now, since a lot of people, because of COVID, their primary mode of socialization is online. They have much more to fear from this than people who have more like moderate exchanges with people in the world. And I use this example. I know it's political again, but it's just a widely known one. If I could use like a movie or something like that, I will. But sometimes the best example of this is just a real life example, right? Like I mention Doom Patrol whenever I can. The reason I love the Cliff Steele apology thing is I'm stupid, I fucked up, I'm sorry is something that's easy to understand. That's the, take ownership for the problem, express remorse, all that stuff. People are like, what does that mean? I'm stupid, I fucked up, I'm sorry. You can understand that, right? But there was a moment in the Joe Biden town hall that was instructive in how cringeworthy it is. And yes, I said cringeworthy. I will not say cringe. That term makes me cringe. But again, I am not saying it is immoral to use the term cringe. Cringe as that's cringe instead of I cringed or I cringe. That's cringe. It's the wrong part of speech to me. But he answered this question about a woman's trans daughter. And his terminology was just so dead wrong. Like at one point he actually said, if your daughter says, I want to be transgender, she should be able to go ahead. And it's like, oh, Joe Biden, it's not a choice. But there's an example of someone who gets it so wrong, but lands so in the right place. And anybody thinking recognizes he doesn't have the good words. But he has the good intentions, and it's the intentions that matter. And I said on Twitch yesterday that I don't think if he had planned to make that mistake and answer that question the way he did, it couldn't have been more perfect. The fact that it was just bumbling Uncle Joe, and this is why he's so effective as a politician. And I couldn't explain why. And then Oron Darklord said in chat, he said, because everyone wants to be Joe Biden in that way. They want to be able to have their intentions matter, even though he didn't say this, it's my words. They didn't use the good words, but they had the good intentions, and that's what mattered. And this is why I am so fascinated with these topics. Because, yes, at the end of it all, at the core, it is really the intentions that should matter. The problem is we don't have Jean Grey and Charles Xavier in the real world reading minds, right? The only way we can only infer intention. We can't observe intention. And structure of how you present yourself goes a long way to letting people be able to see that good intention. And of course, on the internet, you don't have the luxury that Joe Biden did at that town hall, which is like talk for 3 minutes uninterrupted, right? Mostly uninterrupted. So that's the issue online. We all say things that come out wrong on the first try, right? Especially on Twitter, we sometimes have to jam things in to meet that character limit. And so we're not as precise as we would like to be. That's why I do think there is some bad faith going on Twitter, that people are jumping all over someone's wording in a tweet. What should really matter is what they meant behind the whole thing. And I do think we have to get back to that. And that's why I continue to take crap on certain things, in part because I don't know when people are going to learn that they can't just get me to shut up by being loud and obnoxious. I think it's waves. You know, there comes a new brand of troll that knew not Leanna. They'll learn. But I really do think that intentions are what should matter. Sometimes it's impossible to get to that intention. But I just think of all the people that still watch this channel who back in the Gamergate days, their first impression of me was they thought I was some SJW feminazi and they hated my guts, right? They're good people. They thought I was a bad person. And so they reacted in a distrusting manner. They thought they were doing the ethical thing, going, rawr, get the bad person, you know? And I had the awareness, I had the framing to go, I can see why they think that. So I'm going to give them a few chances. Because what's it to me? That was actually what I did for people who are new here. I took the people from Gamergate who were coming at me at their word. That they were just mad at me because I was a games journalist and they thought games journalists were engaging in horrible corruption and nobody was listening to them. And it's the nobody was listening to them part that I'm like, well, I can listen. If all you want me to do is listen, I can do that. And Cal fucking surprise, it actually worked with a fairly large number of people. They were telling the truth, that the real motivation for their anger was that they did not feel like the area of the media that was supposed to be representing them and listening to them as well as talking at them, because that is part of reporting, that they weren't being listened to. They were being misrepresented. They were being judged by a minority of their group. The whole was being judged by a minority. So I'm like, let's try it. Let's do an experiment. You want me to listen? I'll listen. And yeah, they swore at me and they yelled at me and they called me a bunch of names and they did a bunch of stuff. But it's true. There was a lot of anger pent up. The vast majority of them were not arguing effectively, but they were arguing in good faith. And eventually they calmed down because they did feel heard. And we had a very lovely conversation. And a lot of them have gone on to support my projects. In other words, I treated them like human beings and they responded like human beings. It wasn't that hard. It was time consuming at times, but it wasn't that hard. And I've come to the determination that the only reason we're not seeing more of that in media and in the world is because everybody wants somebody else to go first, right? Everybody doesn't feel heard, so everybody wants to talk, and nobody wants to listen unless they're a therapist charging, $150 an hour. this is one of these problems that's simple to solve, but it's not easy in terms of, I get that people want the big names in games journalism to start listening, or the big names in game making to start listening. And so they're missing the lower level people that are listening instead of elevating the lower level people that are listening so they can compete with the big names. There's a bit of a logic fault here, but I get it. It's human. It's hard to remember, and this is just where I'll close. Because don't forget, I was on Canadian TV for years. People think that being on TV is this super glamorous thing where you're constantly getting your ass kissed. And it's not. The vast majority of it is somebody criticizing you and saying you're inadequate. It's a business. And when you are a media personality, you are as much a commodity as an employee, right? You're the Amazon delivery man, but also the box that gets torn up and thrown out when it's not useful anymore. It's incredibly dehumanizing. And so there's this disconnect between what people see on TV, which is, glitz and glamour, and what really goes on in the regular day-to-day. And, people would talk to me like I knew them forever, and we had some very personal relationship. Because they watched me on their TV. I'd never met them before, right? It's an oddly dehumanizing thing, because the problem is, it's like, okay, and then they don't get what they expect out of the exchange, so they walk away disappointed, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And you learn little tactics and tricks here and there, but nobody teaches you. You have to do it by failing a lot. And I really think that if we spent some more time really trying to understand, maybe not put other people up on a pedestal quite so much, and come at them more as someone who is your equal, as opposed to this, punching up shit, which is nonsense, it'll work out better. Like, trust me, really, it will. It just is about, remembering that not people aren't coming at things from the same underpinning. Words don't mean the same thing to everybody. As long as we're willing to listen and give people a chance to clarify, that is the cheapest, easiest, fastest way to improve things. Of course, nobody gets rich off of that. Okay, if you like this sort of content, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. Final question for next week. Do you want me to cover the AOC Ilhan Omar Among Us thing? It was split on Twitch, so I'm asking here, or are you just sick of it? Too much politics, go back to straight up gaming. Because I do have some gaming topics in mind for next week, but things are moving so friggin' fast, it's impossible to keep up. All right, thanks for watching.